teacher, that Paramahansa Yogananda would often open his services by asking everyone, "Are you awake and ready?"
Yes.
I figured you were. That was really wonderful. And it's wonderful to be back, and that 9 years was just like that. I didn't realize it had been so long, and I fondly remember being here, and I remember the bright light that is this community, and also the fondness that I have for Reverend Dr. Bill Little. You know already you're so blessed to have such a spiritual leader in your community. So I'm grateful for him, for his work, and for the invitation to be back with you today. So, I'm going to talk about wealth, about the jewel of abundance, and what it is to become wealth. And there's a beautiful scripture in the Gospel of John, third John, 2nd chapter, 5th verse, which is like an invitation. It's a letter that he was writing to his friend, and he starts it out with, "Beloved," I like that greeting, don't you? "Beloved, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers." What a beautiful greeting, beautiful blessing. And so it also leaves us with the question, which is, well, what is it for the soul to prosper? And what is it for us to prosper and be in health as the soul prospers? And you know, I'm aware, and I suspect you are as well, that we're living in stressful times. And there's a question about how to prosper. We have great disparity in wealth in our nation and in our world. We have people who are struggling, trying to figure out how to make ends meet. We have people on the spiritual path who are wondering, well, how do you bring it together? This meditative life, this spiritual life, and thriving and prospering in the world. And when I wrote this book, the publishers say to you, well, you should have like an elevator thing that you can say about your book. Like, how do you describe what's in a book like this in just, 30 seconds? And so it comes down to this: how we can thrive and prosper and be successful in the world without losing our soul along the way. And that's a question. How do we thrive and prosper and succeed without losing our soul along the way? Well, of course you know, because you're a spiritual community here, and I know that we can't actually lose the soul because we are the soul, right? But we can lose contact with the soul, right? We can lose touch with our essential nature. We can get lost wandering out in the world. And that was really my story as a spiritual seeker. And I thought that my experience, my story was unique. And when I came on the path of yoga and the teachings of yoga, Kriya yoga in particular, I learned that I wasn't at all unique. And in fact, my story was quite universal. It's so universal that most of the scriptures have teachings about it. And one that I particularly like is from the Sufi tradition. So I'm going to share that story with you, and it's one that you may have heard already, but it's worth repeating. So this is a story about the wise fool who is named Mullah Nasruddin. So one night, Mullah is outside, and he's down on the ground. And he's under this street lamp, and he's digging around in the dirt. He's looking up, looking down, digging around, fretting, wiping his brow, digging around some more. And as he's doing this, his friend comes along and notices the frantic nature of Mullah. So he says to him, Mullah, what are you doing out here at night, scraping around under this street light? Mullah says, well, I'm looking for my keys. I've lost them. And then his friend says to him, well, Mullah, where did you last see them? Now, that's the question, of course, that our friend always asks us when we're looking for our keys. Right? And it's the most annoying question, because if we knew where we last saw them, then we wouldn't be looking for them, right? So his friend comes up with that perennial question, when did you last see them? Where did you leave them? And Mullah says, well, in my house. And his friend says, well, if you know you last saw them in your house, why are you out here looking under the street lamp for them? And he says, because the light is better out here. It's such a great story. And of course, it's the universal story about all of us. How we're looking in the world for the key. For the keys to our happiness, for the keys to our success, for the keys to our security. We're out looking in the world because we think the light is better out there. And we don't know how to look inside. And that was really my story. I had heard the teaching, that the kingdom of God is within you. But I didn't know the way in. I didn't know where the door was. I didn't know how to find that kingdom, queendom that was within me. And so I had the grace-filled blessing of meeting my guru, meeting my spiritual teacher, who's an American yogi, Roy Eugene Davis. He's a direct disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda. And I met him in 1979. And when I met him, he showed me how to look within, how to find that key to happiness and prosperity, fulfilled living that I was looking everywhere for in the world and couldn't find. I was at that juncture in my life where I had the picture. I had what I thought happiness and success and prosperous living was supposed to look like externally. I had a beautiful family and home. I had work that I loved, but I had this feeling that something was missing. I just felt like something was missing, and I had kind of a pervasive sense of unhappiness, that I just didn't know what was missing. When, of course, I discovered what was missing was myself. And again, I wasn't missing, but my connection to myself was missing. So I was always looking for something else. One more thing, to bring that happiness that we all search for. Paramahansa Yogananda said, everybody is looking for something else. And he capitalized the something and the else. As he said, that something else is God. And that something else, of course, is our own true self, is our own true nature. But we need to, of course, learn how to discover that truth, not just to be told that it is within us, but to actually experience it and to know it for ourselves. That's what the spiritual teachings are here to do, to point us in that direction and then show us how to discover that for ourselves. So just like Mullah Nasruddin's friend in that story, who really signifies the guru or the spiritual teacher who comes along in your life and says to you, hey, here's an idea. Why don't you look in your own house? In other words, why don't you look in your own consciousness? Why don't you look in your own self, in your own awareness, in the well of spirit that is you? Why don't you look there? And that was the teaching that I received from my teacher when I met him. And he said, there is an enlivening power that runs this universe, and we can learn to cooperate with it. There is an enlivening power, sometimes he called it a power for good, that runs this universe, and we can learn how to cooperate with it. So, how do we do that? Well, that's the subject of this book. I'm going to share a little bit with you. The inclination to thrive, prosper, and fulfill our potential is the natural impulse of our divine capacity as spiritual beings. The same energy that gives birth to the stars in the cosmos, inspires music, literature, architecture, medicine, dance, technology, any and all forms of creative expression and manifestation. That energy is unlimited. It pervades all of nature, relentlessly encouraging all of life to realize its full potential. Thrive, thrive, it implores. It whispers in our dreams and stirs our imagination with its evolutionary call. Prosper, live your full life. Do what you came here to do. Follow the impulse to prosper and become all that you truly are in your fullness. Now, do you remember as a child being asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? I remember that question. And I remember thinking about it. You know, even though I didn't have a map for how I was going to do what I was going to do with my life, but I remember that soul yearning. And I think we're still asking kids that question today, right? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do when you grow up? And then over the years, I've had many spiritual seekers say to me, well, it's kind of a response to that question. You say, wouldn't it be great if life came with an instruction manual? So I discovered that seemingly missing instruction manual can be found in ancient Vedic teachings. And what we find there, what I've written about, what I'm sharing with you this morning, is called the Purush Arthas. The Purush Arthas. It's a Sanskrit word for the 4 universal aims of life. Purush Artha is the 4 universal aims for a spiritually fulfilled life. And that term really says everything. When we understand the translation of that term, it means for the sake of the soul. So these are 4 universal life goals that are held up for us as, okay, how do we do this? How do we thrive? How do we prosper? How do we live a life with heart and meaning without losing our soul along the way? When we look in these ancient teachings, they say, okay, look, here's 4 goals for you. Keep these in mind, because these goals are for the sake of the soul, and they will show you how to do it. So I'm going to share those goals with you today. The first one on the list, I think you're probably familiar with. The first one is called Dharma, right? And that word now is becoming more familiar in the English lexicon, like yoga. But like yoga, Dharma has big, deep meaning. Several ways of understanding what Dharma is. In the context of these 4 universal aims of life, Dharma means to live with higher purpose. Live your life with higher purpose. Now, Dharma also means support. It means the foundation. It means the natural and spiritual order of the way that things are. It refers to the cosmic order of life. And it refers to a thing being what it is, doing what it does naturally. Like the Dharma of the ocean is to break into waves. The Dharma of a door is to open and close. The Dharma of a cloud is to rain. And for us as human beings, our Dharma is to wake up. To wake up to the spiritual truth of our being, to realize what we are as emanations of that one ultimate divine reality, expressing that in the world. So that's the overarching Dharma, the higher purpose of every human being. To be what we are is to wake up and express that divine light in the world. Shine on in, right? And then every person has also a specific Dharma, what is called Swadharma, your individual purpose. So we all have talents and dreams and gifts and responsibilities that are unique to each one of us. So we're here to offer those gifts and to serve those responsibilities in our life in our own unique way. So that is the first of the 4 universal aims, is Dharma, to live with higher purpose. I was offering a talk in Atlanta at Dr. Barbara King's church at the Hillside Chapel, and I was going to give an afternoon workshop on Dharma, and the minister who was announcing me said, Reverend O'Brien is here today and she's going to talk about Dharma. And then she said, and I just want you to know, I want you to understand that word. She said, that word is not drama. As we all know, drama, but this is Dharma. And I thought that is so powerful, and it made me think about, if we have too much drama in our lives, we don't have enough Dharma, right? So we have that first universal aim to live our life with higher purpose. Now these goals are thousands of years old. They're for all people, all ages, all backgrounds. They're for everybody, universal. Now the second one is Artha, which means wealth. Now, that is kind of surprising when we look at a life, a spiritual life, and there's 4 aims. And the second one is wealth. It's really wonderful that it's there because we really need to get that one, don't we? We need to get it in the right way. And that's what this whole goal is about, is to understand what it means to be wealthy. For one thing, we understand that it's not just about material resources, right? To prosper as the soul prospers. May you be in health. May you have love. May you have happiness. May you have creative work. All of this that is the wealth that is soul wealth. But here, as the second aim of life, of wealth, we are to understand this aim as our ability to attract, to create and to attract that which we need to fulfill our purpose in life. Those two go together. And I know so many people who have beautiful ideas. They're spiritually grounded people. They have beautiful ideas. They're here to offer to the world, but they haven't figured out the wealth part yet. You know, they don't know how to gather the resources to do the good work that they are here to do. And that's critical. And even the ancients knew that these two need to go together. And then we have some who put wealth first. We have a lot of those in our world today. Put wealth first, material wealth first, and they leave Dharma out of it. They leave out living a spiritual life of higher purpose. So in this system, we have wealth as the second life goal, but we understand it to be paired with Dharma, to be paired with living with higher purpose. It doesn't come first. It comes second. And it comes second for a purpose, so that the goal that we have to thrive and to prosper and to succeed is so that we can fulfill that higher purpose, do what we're here to do, and make a contribution to life. Contribution to the greater well-being of all, because that is Dharma, is a higher purpose. So that's where wealth sits in this system. And then the third goal sometimes is the most surprising of all, and the third goal is, the Sanskrit word is kama, and that goal is pleasure. I really expect an amen when I get to this. But I think people, you know, in spiritual congregations are so shocked by it, they just kind of go mute. We have 4 spiritual life goals: live with higher purpose, prosper, and enjoy your life. Amen. And when we look at that, it also makes perfect sense, doesn't it? I mean, what if you are living your purpose and you gather all the resources to do it, but you're miserable? That makes no sense at all. Somehow the soul has been left out of it. And then the 4th goal is called Moksha, or liberation, or freedom. So here we have these 4 goals of life. The 4th goal you could call enlightenment as well. So we see that living with higher purpose and having our sights set, our life about freedom and enlightenment are the 2 goals that help us understand the right relationship that we have with wealth and pleasure. So, you know, it doesn't put wealth and pleasure first and say, you know, when you get done with that, you know, come around to thinking about your spiritual life. No, it says your spiritual life is there to guide you in right relationship with wealth and with pleasure, with enjoying your life. And if you understand that relationship and the tools that we're given for doing that, then you won't lose your soul along the way. It's a beautiful, beautiful system. So let me share a little bit more with you about this. Okay, a little bit about wealth. Rumi said, a jewel fell into the core of the heart, unlike any God gave to the seas or the sky. A jewel fell into the core of the heart, unlike any God gave to the seas or the sky. Do you have a dream? A vision of possibility that calls to you and returns again and again. A divine inspiration that is yours to bring forth. As spiritual beings, we all have nudges from the infinite, glimpses of life's greater potentials. This is life's prosperity imperative. To call it an imperative. Those nudges are life's invitation to be the growing edge of divine love. Those nudges are life's invitation to be the growing edge of divine love in our world, to rise up and contribute to the evolutionary thrust for planetary awakening. Each person's nudge, each person's call is unique, but the common factor is this imperative, is this call to prosper and to thrive in a way that fulfills our potential by actualizing the divine qualities within us. You know, they wait within us. These divine qualities are within us all, but they're in seed form. And we don't find out what we're capable of until we step out. We don't find out until we step out. So this is why wealth, prosperity, thriving is part of the spiritual picture for us, because we learn about our divine potential when we stretch ourselves to thrive and to blossom. The prosperity imperative is the call of becoming, of expressing our true self in its fullness. In the context of Purushartha, the 4 goals for a fulfilled life, Artha is the wealth that goes hand in hand with the call to awaken. Its shining role is to support life's inherent, irrepressible demand to fulfill our potential and to contribute to the happiness and the well-being of others. There's so much to say about this, but one of the things I want to point out is that as we study metaphysics, study New Thought philosophy, you study yoga, mystical religions, you discover that these 4 goals actually relate to the soul in very specific ways. So with Dharma, that goal, to live with higher purpose, relates to the soul call to live in higher, to live in cooperation with the infinite. In other words, I mentioned, Dharma is to be what we are, right? To express our potential, to live with higher purpose. So it is this nature of the soul to want to be what it is and to be in harmony with the infinite, to be in divine order, in connection with that higher power that runs the universe. So it is the natural urge that we have within us, to be connected to, consciously connected to, and a part of the infinite. We want that, and we feel adrift when we don't feel that connection to spirit, right? So Dharma, having this goal in our life to live our life of higher purpose, is about connecting to the higher true self. And then wealth, it pays attention to the natural inclination that we have to thrive and to prosper and to fulfill those divine potentials within us. That's a quality of the soul that's pressing all the time to express, and as I said, to be the growing edge of divine love in this world. You know, we're not here just to sit and watch the warriors, as fabulous as they are, excluding last night, as fabulous as they are. We are here to make our own goals, right? To make our own points. We are here to thrive and to fulfill that potential. And we're here to enjoy life. Now, according to the teachings of yoga, and I think the mystics of all traditions agree, the nature of the soul is bliss, is ananda. And the great mythologist Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. And a lot of people didn't understand it, when he gave that call. They thought it meant, pasta. But it is what makes your heart sing, what makes your soul sing with joy. This is why we have this life goal, to enjoy, because the soul itself is blissful. So if we are thriving, if we're prospering, but we have lost touch with our own joy, then we have lost touch with the self. We have lost touch with the soul. So do you see how these goals work? Isn't this fabulous? Just sort of think about this. It's just such a basic, powerful template for how to prosper, how to thrive, how to find fulfillment without losing your soul along the way, because each of these goals is connected to the natural inclinations of the soul. And the last one, moksha, to be enlightened, to know liberation, is of course the imperative of the soul, to be free. To be free, not to be bound by anyone or anything, not to lose our peace, not to lose our happiness by being tied up in other people, in circumstances, mistaking all of that as the source. How often do we make other people or circumstances the source of our happiness, of our joy, of our security? That's a big mistake. Because all that, it's subject to change, and it just takes the soul into bondage. So we have this fourth goal, which is freedom. Liberation of consciousness, to understand that our joy, our delight, our freedom, our security does not come from anything outside of us. It is of the soul itself. So these goals, in such a beautiful way, I like to think of them as our GPS. God positioning system. And we all have a GPS, which really is the soul itself. The soul is our GPS. It tells us where we need to go. It tells us when we've lost our way. We just need to look in our own house to find what we have lost touch with. And prospering is a path of transformation for us. Let me go back to this book for a moment. In the context of spiritual awakening, learning how to prosper is a path of transformation. It's not a way to take us out and away from the spiritual life. It's a way, if we pay attention to all these four goals, it's a way that will take us more profoundly into our spiritual life, because it's a way that we step into our potential. It's a way that we can grow spiritually. In the context of spiritual awakening, learning how to prosper is a path of transformation. Not just a utility, not just an option. Prospering is our necessity. It is our way of awakening. The great 19th century yoga master Lahiri Mahashaya, whose life was widely introduced in the West through Paramahansa Yogananda's famous book, The Autobiography of a Yogi. Lahiri Mahashaya said, "The world is an auspicious place for sadhana, or spiritual practice. The conditions in our life right now are exactly what we need." Can we just affirm that? That's kind of hard right now, nationally. This is exactly what we need. But it's true, right? The conditions in our life right now are exactly what we need to help us wake up, grow up, and show up. To learn how to live with higher purpose and to develop skillful means. Our learning curve is our vehicle for awakening. As we engage, we grow and we awaken. As we thrive, we transform. It's a revolutionary approach to wealth, one that challenges the old paradigm that wealth is separate from spirituality and only for a select few. It's a universal life goal. It's life's imperative, and it's available to everyone. Prospering is so much more than we think, and its importance and potential are so much more than we realize. So, we'll leave you with a little story about how to prosper without losing our soul, without losing our balance. I grew up in the Bay Area. I was born in Oakland, and when I was school age, about to enter kindergarten, my family migrated from Oakland to the suburbs of Hayward, California, where they were building those tract houses, and they had the promise of good schools. So my parents took us there. There wasn't anything cultural that could be found in that city at that time, at least that I was aware of out there in suburbia. But we did have a mall. God bless the mall. And in the mall, we had Miss Margie's dance studio. And God bless Miss Margie, because she taught me a very important life lesson. Now you got to see Miss Margie, because she had flaming red hair, curly red hair, and she, this was in the 50s, right? So, and then she had those black glasses with the rhinestones and the red hair and the leotard and the fishnet stockings with the tap shoe high heels. And, you know, for a little girl, this was Divine Mother. So I took dance lessons from Miss Margie. And one of the things I learned from her that I never forgot, and later I realized was a spiritual lesson, was she taught me how to turn without losing my balance and without falling down. That's a basic dance lesson. And so how do you do that? Well, what Miss Margie taught me is you have to have a focus. And so every time you turn, you come back. You keep coming back to your point of focus, and you turn and you alight there at that point of focus. Every time you turn, you come back to that focus. And I learned really quickly that if I didn't pay attention to what my focus point was, I would fall over. And it's not so different for us in life, on this spiritual path that we call life. We need a focus. We need a focus in our spiritual life to keep us from falling over and losing our balance along the way. Was that an amen? Thank you. Let me close with this reading. What we really love. A successful life, a fully prospering life, is only possible with the soul's joy, never without it. A successful life, a fully prospering life, is only possible with the soul's joy and never without it. This joy is not a heady happiness, an emotional reaction to life's experiences. The soul's joy is life-giving refreshment. Like a bubbling spring that rises from the deep ground of our being, it continually refreshes our life with the crystal clear waters of self-knowing. It's the experience of being fully alive, in love with life, eager to greet each new dawn wearing the colors of possibility. To succeed, optimize your life. To succeed, optimize your life. Sanctify your days. Make a sanctuary for the soul. Make a sanctuary for the soul. Build it with love. Light it with peace. Make a sanctuary for the soul. Build it with love. Light it with peace. Invite everyone in. Invite everyone in. Center yourself in yourself. That's a small self. Center that self in yourself, capital S, self. Center yourself in yourself. Nourish your body. Open your mind. Honor your soul. Change your thoughts. Change your thoughts, then soar beyond them. Namaste. Thank you.